In this tutorial in CyberLink PowerDirector, like to give you some tips that you might find useful when you are shortening or trimming your clips. I have on track number 1 two clips. One is of a couple knocking a soccer ball around in the yard, and the second one is another couple, but they're sitting on the porch enjoying some coffee. What I'd like to do is trim the first clip. An easy way to do that is simply highlight that, and then we can click on the icon that says Trim Unwanted Portions from the Clip. That will get me into an entirely different screen. And there's some nice features about this. You have your in point and out point, and these are reflected by the opportunity to see the exact frame over here. I can move those one of two ways. I can drag the little yellow icon, and that will move it left. And now I see my in position is updated over here, and it gives me the exact frame. I can do the same with the out position. I can drag this back here, and I can tweak it, either one, by using the up or down arrows, which will move one frame at a time, and it will refresh what I see. Now this indicator simply shows me what's at this particular frame in what remains of my clip. So this one, if it's near the front one or the back one, will show me what I have. It will also show me what's outside of my trimmed position if I want to see that on my main screen. So you have the duration of the clip as trimmed, you have the in position and the out position, and you can control all of these. Now there's one feature that I don't think they have working the way I expect it to anyway. This is the lock one. Now we find that the duration of this clip as adjusted now is 8 seconds 17 frames. I'll click on it to lock it. Then I'll click on OK. And when I hover over it, it is indeed 8 seconds and 17 frames. But I've discovered that I can adjust that. I can take the mouse and drag back shorter and do trim only, and now it's shorter. I can also make it longer, 9 seconds and 3 frames. So the lock, at least the way I'm using it, doesn't work perfectly. So tip number 1 is you can trim that way. Tip number 2 is there's a faster way to trim. I'll use it here. I prefer to trim right on the timeline using my preview window. And this gives me the opportunity to get it approximate when I drag my playhead, and I get to the seconds I want, but then I can tweak it by either clicking on this icon here in the preview that will move me one frame at a time forward or one frame at a time backward, or I can use the greater than or less than, the comma and the period keys on the keyboard to do that even faster. So that will give me very precise control. And then when I want to split it, I click on Control T, as in Texas, and that gives me a precise split. I prefer to work on the timeline. It's faster than going to this other screen, but if you want more detail, that's your other option. I'm going to go ahead and delete this now. Tip number 1 is you can use that subtool, that subscreen if you want. Tip number 2 is why? Stick to your timeline if that serves your purpose. Tip number 3 is this. And this is something new users of PowerDirector sometimes forget, is that when you cut a clip, you have not really ripped off the end of it. You've kind of curled it underneath. So right now, this second clip is 14 seconds and 9 frames. If I decide when I'm done, I really want it a little bit longer. I don't want it that short anymore. It doesn't fit my purposes. I'm not stuck. So I can simply take the playhead, move it out of the way, and then I can click on the clip, use my double-headed arrow, and I can enlarge it. I can, as it were, uncurl the end and make it all the way back to its original size if I want to. And you can do that at either end of the clip, where you can shorten or lengthen it. It's nice to have that flexibility because when I first used the program, I thought, gee, I cut it, I made it short, I have to drag it down again into my timeline in order to be able to do that. And no, we're just curling the ends under it. We're not actually destroying the content at the beginning or the end. Another option that you have is if you actually split a clip. I'll do Control T to do that here. I can take either component of the clip and I can also make that back to the size of the original if I want. And I will, let's see, we'll trim and move the clip here. So now I have the option of taking any segment of a clip and making it as big as the original or as small as I want, just simply by dragging. And I can choose what I do when I do that. But that's a real nice feature, because sometimes your first guesses on where the length of a clip is and what frame it should end on are not where you're going to wind up at the end. And it gives you the option just to slightly tweak it with the mouse and adjust it if you want to in other ways with your find key previous frame, next frame tools, or those on the keyboard. But trimming is a nice feature in PowerDirector. They make it very easy to change your mind as much as you want and make it fit your finished goals perfectly.